Good evening, ladies
Uncle
and
Tony, good to
gentlemen.
see your
Thank
face.
you for
Okay.
joining us for this edition of HR Mentorship Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at a topic titled From Stress to Success, Mastering Difficult Bosses. And our facilitator is Jimmy Mokikon. And I would like to read his profile. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy is a dedicated HR professional with extensive experience specializing in optimizing human capital resources for organizational success through strategic innovation, with a rich background in institutions like Money Master PSB, Smart Cash PSB, Union Bank of Nigeria PLC, Globalcom, Ristra Consulting, and so on and so forth. He has acquired valuable insights into strategic HR practices and a favor for cultivating positive workplace cultures. He has several certifications, including Thomas Theory Profiling Professional Certified Assessor, A-grade job evaluator, is an associate of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, and is a member of the Committee of Human Resource Experts at Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, and a trained career counselor. He's also a graduate of the PwC Union Bank Leadership Initiative, a prestigious one-year leadership school aimed at nurturing leaders. He has represented Nigerian employers at the Global Dialogue Forum on the challenges and opportunities of teleworking for workers and employers in the ICT and financial service sectors, organized by the International Labour Organization, ILO, in Geneva. He has also been a delegate of NECA at several ILO conferences. By way of education, Jimmy has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in business administration, specializing in human resources from University of Ilorin, and his MBA from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. He's also the author of 2 books, Will the Glory Still Come Down and Danger Zone, both of which have gained significant traction, selling numerous copies. His volunteer work includes the service at the Elevation Church, Lekki, where he leads the career pro team. This team comprises of HR executives focusing on providing career guidance, intervention, and development for professionals at various career stages. His philosophy his dedication lies in delivering people-oriented, value-driven results and opportunities. For him, that's for Jimmy, HR is not just a profession, but a calling and expression of his life. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking to us on the topic, From Stress to Success, Mastering Difficult Bosses, I present to you Jimmy.
Thank you, Yemi, Tallest, as most of us will call it. Good evening, everyone. This is a big opportunity I don't take for granted. Anytime Tallest calls to say, I need you to speak on some specific topics. So thank you, everyone, for joining. There are 13 of us here, and I believe that the maybe 1 hour, 45 minutes that we'll spend together will make it as productive as possible. I will try as much as possible to make this a very interactive session and practical session. So please, I know at the end of the session, many people like to say, oh, I want the slide, I want this. I think we should just put that aside. Let's be very practical. Slides is quite very theoretical for me, so I probably won't even, be reading and all of that we can see. So I want us to just speak to the subject of From Stress to Success, Mastering Difficult Bosses. So there are some keywords here. We talk about stress, we talk about success, we talk about difficult bosses, emphasis on difficult. Some will rather call them bad bosses, but let's call it difficult. Bad can be very generic. And then the key thing is mastering them. How do you understand them? So I'll just, go to what my agenda looks like. Like I mentioned in the first page is, let's even know what stress is. What's the impact of stress? What are those traits when you talk about difficult bosses? And this is where I will really need a participation. Then we'll talk about understanding them and how do we navigate difficult situations, which I think it's an aspect that a whole lot of us will relate to it very well if you've been there. When I shared the flyer earlier today, one of my very senior colleague in the IT space, buzzed me and said, you are perfect for this. I say, well, I don't know what you're talking about. So if you ask what, people sometimes will just say, you're stressing me. Called senior college in here. You're stressing me. Sometimes my son will say, oh, African parents can stress and all of that. So beyond just the general use of stress, what exactly is stress? And the simple definition says, is a way our body reacts to certain changes. So stress is the body's reaction to any change that requires any change to the body that requires an adjustment or response. Maybe all the times they might not be stress, which again then talks about there could be positive stress, there could be negative stress. So, but basically, we all use the word, this job is stressing me, Nigeria is stressing me, this administration is stressing me. It means that there is a way that your body, your system, your body metabolism is reacting to something. So we won't go into the medical terminologies of what stress is or not, but at some point, please, I would advise, if it has gone to a certain extent, please, let's engage the services of a medical professional. What are those things that, basically stresses people? We call them stressors. Some will say, what are those things that drains you? We went for a couple's weekend, and it was the time to talk about what are those things that drains, what are those things that fuels. So those things that fuels, they are like the positive stressors, and then those things that drains energy, that sort of makes you sad. It can give you headache, all sort of things there. And then my wife, it was the turn of my wife, and she said, so my wife has a catering business, and she was like, the fact that I love to try different cooking, different type of delicacies, and then my husband does not like to explore. He doesn't like to try food. So for me, is a drainer, is like a stressor for me. So in the workplace, what are those things that we'll look at as common workplace stressors? Talk about workloads. You look at if you see the picture, you can see, apologies that, I really couldn't get an African picture, so to say. But it's like this guy has backload or a trailer load of documents to go through. So high workload, tight deadlines. I like to use the word timelines, really. Lack of control over your work. You leave your office and you are not even sure when your guy can call you anytime. You just don't know. So some of us perpetually, our phone is beside us and all of that. Poor work-life balance, difficult relationship with colleagues or bosses. So which is the aspect where, our conversation will tilt towards. Please, if you have any question, any comments, I believe the chat room is there. Please just put it there. I might not be able to see, but I trust the moderator to help us on that. Okay, so just touching it lightly, stress can affect us in different aspects. You talk about, say, man is a spirit, he has a soul, he lives in a body. So stress can affect this three-dimensional parts of man, whether physical, whether emotional, and whether spiritual. When you look at physical, what are those signs? What are those symptoms that, guy, maybe you're stressed out? You talk about headache, you talk about fatigue, sleep disturbance, and weakened immune system. Um, I remember some years back, I was having a particular ailment, and I think I wrote an article on it on LinkedIn sometimes. And I'd gone to different medical professionals and all sort of tests. They just couldn't see anything. They knew something was wrong, but they couldn't see until God in His mercy. One day I just somehow, I don't know how I stumbled on it and found out that there's a trend. So every time my immune system is weak, extremely weak, that is when I go through the particular ailment. And then I realized, oh, the moment I'm seeing signs or symptoms of it, I just, draw back. Sometimes I just call my line manager, say, please, today maybe I'll work from home or something. It can also impact us mentally. And I'm particularly going this route so that, we build some sort of foundation. And then before we go into, the nitty-gritty of what it is about, anxiety. For some people, the thought of I'm going to the office in the morning, and then I see the face of my line manager, in quotes, that difficult boss, that wicked oga. There's just this anxiety. They don't feel it when they leave the house, but the moment they maybe they get to the last bus stop before the office, there's just something that causes fear in them. And then, of course, it has a negative impact on our performance. Our productivity is going to be low. The quality of your output, is something that will always constantly be questioned. Of course, increased absenteeism. Like I did mention, when I had those health challenges at that point, there are times when I will just have to call and say, hey, boss, please, I need some time off. I need to work from home, so that I can take care of myself. And sometimes I ask myself, when the opportunity for a career growth, a promotion comes in, and I have to, compete with someone, wouldn't that my absenteeism, wouldn't it be used as a factor against me? So these are just some of those things, the impact that stress has on employees. So next thing is, we talk about, this is where we're looking at really today. We'll talk about difficult bosses. And like I mentioned earlier, some would rather use the word wicked or bad bosses or wicked bosses. But let's use an appropriate word, difficult, because again, if I'm counseling you on some challenges on the job, I'm only hearing from your own side of the story. I only hear your own side of the story. Sometimes I don't have the opportunity of speaking or engaging with your line manager. And I know once I've had an instance where a young lady, when I was in Union Bank, had approached and, was having some very serious challenges with the line manager. And when she mentioned the name of the line manager, I found out, oh, it's somebody I know very well. And then I asked the lady, can I go ahead and engage? And she said, yes. So I called the line manager, oh, this person is a very close, friend and all of that. And I'm hearing she's having some, challenges and the likes with you and all of that. And then by the time the guy gave a rundown, I realized that, I've only heard one side of the story. So, which is why I said, let's use an appropriate word and say difficult bosses. So there are some words here which we say they are traits of difficult bosses. But I need our participation. Just drop in the chat box, in the chat, chat box. What words describe maybe a difficult boss you've encountered or you are encountering? Don't talk about the one you will encounter. We're talking of maybe present or past. So let me look at the chat just to be sure I can see. I've not seen any chat, but just drop a chat, right? Again, just to be sure that I'm not just talking to myself. What words describe, yeah, okay, thanks, Torres, I can see the test. So what word describe a difficult boss that you've encountered? We'll talk about, somebody who is always criticizing you. Frequent criticism is there. Overly competitive. There's just this insecurity about their subordinates, and it looks as if maybe the subordinates want to outshine them. I remember one of my very good bosses then say, rule number one: don't outshine your boss. That's rule number one. I never forgot that rule. Don't try to show that you know more than your boss, which is what some of us do. Difficult bosses are domineering, they're authoritarian. Emotional intelligence quite low on that side. They're irritable. They're not supportive. They undermine subordinates. They could be very negative and pessimistic, unfair or favoritism. When you have, there are about 3 or 4 of you in a team, or even 2 of you, and you just realize that, this is their favorite is usually the other colleagues. They're overly critical. I spoke about frequent criticism. So frequent criticism is, like, it's just very frequent. There is nothing you can do. And then on the one that they want to criticize is overly, they go deep down, just go over and over and over again. Sometimes it's set unrealistic expectations. Sorry, let me see the charts. Okay, highly controlling, very personal on emotion. Thank you, Nene. Okay, Emmanuel says, I've worked with a boss that will never say anything good, I guess from me, always critical of one's work. Yes, you're just very spot on. Inconsistent, they're very poor communicator. They give this instruction and then you do it, and they give you an understanding that it was something else they were telling you to do. They lack empathy. They are blame shifters. When they want to nail you, if anything goes wrong, just know that it's coming on your head. They could be very toxic. Perfectionism. And I must confess that for a while I was under this category of where some of my team members could actually say I was difficult because I wanted anything they were giving, I wanted it to be perfect. Now, there are different ways by which you can, help your team members to do that. But unfortunately, some difficult bosses don't go the right way. And then the last word I like to use here is they are micromanagers. Oh, God. They give you a work and then they sit on your neck. Let's assume you're supposed to do an Excel. You use a font and they tell you, no, go and use this font. It has to be color this, it has to be color that. No, it must be this. They just want to micromanage. You basically cannot think. And then it gets you to a point where you are thinking, if you think, you might end up, getting on the wrong side of this difficult boss. Okay. So Kende says, I have encountered a difficult line supervisor. She was never a people person. I took up the case with her supervisor when I couldn't take it any longer. She used abusive words on subordinates and was unapologetic. It led to a depression and mental breakdown for subordinates. Many resigned. When she resigned, we all... oh God. When she resigned, you all had a party. But are you not then thinking, this difficult boss that resigned and is going to somewhere else? Don't you feel for those people where she's going to? But it's true. I've seen instances where people leave and there's just, oh God, thank you, we can now breathe. So there are so many ways with which you can describe a difficult boss. And I remember a particular case, and I know Toles will remember very well. My sister had interviewed for a particular organization, and then I think they had even shared an offer letter with her. And someone reached out to me and said, I saw your sister. I saw her profile. She's coming here. If she's not jobless, tell her not to come. If she's not jobless, if she has a job that she's doing and it's not like maybe there's a knife on her neck, please tell her to stay. And of course, I gave the reasons and all. And it's not far-fetched, the person you are going to work with. Yesterday, I went online just to check some statistics and I saw, I can't remember the organization now, that about 57% of resignations in America is as a result of difficult line managers. So this 57% didn't resign because they were poorly paid. Some of them were even paid well, but just because they have a difficult boss to deal with. Okay, so how do you begin to understand a difficult boss? So some of us find ourselves where you are there. If you remember our topic, it talks about mastering. So there are certain things that are within your control. So that is what we want to look at. There are some other things that are not within your control. So focus on those things that are within your control. So should you find yourself in a situation where you have a difficult boss to deal with, how do you understand them? So one, we talk about communication styles. I said I didn't want to use the word bad bosses. Bad already connotes something bad. So some bosses are not necessarily bad, but they are difficult. So what should I do? So this understanding now is not for your difficult boss to understand you. It's for you to know how to understand that person, because first and foremost, I think that understanding is key. So their style of communication, you need to understand it. So I heard the story of a particular boss who appears to be difficult and everybody fears him. And I got some feedback and I was privileged to be able to speak with the people who were reporting to this boss at different locations across the country. And if I spoke with 5 people, 4 of them said very terrible things about the boss. One person said, the 5th person says, he's tough, but I have learned how to work with him. This is the personality of my boss. So I allow my communication style to fit into his personality. And so while all these other guys are having challenges with him, oftentimes I don't. So what the lady found out is that my boss is very high on numbers. It's a sales team. My boss is very high on numbers. So before he calls you and asks for, so they have meetings, and before he calls you and say, oh, what's your performance like and all of that, the boss prefers that you call him and say, oh, on this, we have done this. This is where I need your help. This is what needs to be done. But the moment it is the boss that calls you before you speak, you are almost at a disadvantage. And the lady said, this is what I have found out about this particular boss of mine. So I learned to manage him. It's difficult, but this is what I'm doing. Now, the work environment also matters. We said overall work environment influences how bosses interact with employees. Unfortunately, some of us, we don't see, there's what we call it the helicopter view. So the helicopter view is able to see different views. But me, that I'm maybe on the 4th floor, another person is on the ground floor, another person is on maybe the basement, I only see what I can see. Sometimes the pressure that these bosses are going through at board level, for instance, unfortunately, some of us do not see it. And some of these difficult bosses do not know how to cascade it. So again, I'm not saying this guy is bad or he's good. I'm just saying we might also begin to look at how do we understand them. And of course, personal issues, you can't take it out. I've heard stories, I've seen instances where somebody comes into the office and is behaving in a particular way. And then you ask yourself, is it that there's problem at home or there's somebody that fought with this person? So people dealing with personal issues, sometimes they bring it to the office, and because they don't know how to vent it at home, they vent it on us, their subordinates. Let me put it that way. Let me check chats. Okay. Okay, thanks, Candice. So, all right, so please, if there are any questions, any clarifications, please just let me know. I'm not here to support difficult bosses. So, we're talking about our style of communication and all of that. So we will still drill down into some things, nitty-gritty, but I just want us to first look at things from our perspective, what we can control and all of that. So how do you talk to this your line manager that appears to be difficult? When I talk to, and I've had instances where maybe not necessarily difficult, but where I had to engage. And rather than, say, make statements like, you're always this, you're always that, you're always blaming me, is I often feel, let me use the word, what's an appropriate word I can't use? I don't want to use the word useless, but I always feel weak anytime you talk to me in a particular way. Rather than say, oh, your words, you are this, you are that, you don't know how to talk and all of that. Sir, every time you speak, and I will give you a typical example. So when Toles gave me this topic, I had to speak with one or two people, and then I said, you know what, I'm not going to disclose anybody's identity. I can use different names to explain. So here's the story of a boss and who he uses foul languages on his subordinates. And then he used the word, and the guy felt very sad. Called another line manager, another senior person, and said, this is what this person had said. He used this word. And while they were still talking, the guy called and used another word. Then this team member fled up, went to the line manager's office, and how do you say, oh, Baraje, he spoiled, he was not, he lost it. But then with the benefit of hindsight, you ask, is that the best way to have addressed this situation? Conflict is inevitable, like I would always say, but combat is optional. That conflict will not happen between husbands and wife, between siblings. Conflict would always happen, but how do you address this conflict? I think it's something that is quite very important for us. So our conflict resolution, address issues directly, calmly, seek to understand the boss perspective, propose solution, and all of that. The third thing, we talk about building resilience, because your health, I say don't go after the wealth and then use the wealth to start, chasing your health. Your health is very, very important. Very important. There are a few things I'm trying to follow the sequence and, not say some things before I get to that place. So, and this is where I will speak about very practical issues a lot. How do you navigate challenging situation? And when I say challenging situation, you're already in it. How do you address it? First thing I would always advise is stay calm. And they say, oh, how can I be calm in the midst of chaos? Somebody puts it this way. It says, hurry up and calm down. So there's a way. You need to first and foremost look at yourself. how do you deal with yourself? How do you address your emotions? Because if you don't address that bit, what happens is you're allowing your emotion to control, the actions and everything, the things you say, the actions, the steps that you take. So first and foremost is first calm down. Interestingly, a few days ago, I got just yesterday, and I got a chat from someone. Please, can you talk? Can you talk? And I've gotten messages like that, especially ones I get, can you talk? Can you talk? So I look for a quiet place and I called. Now this person was like, oh, these people are doing this, they are doing that, they're doing that, they're doing that. I feel like resigning. And I said, calm down. I will call you back. Just calm down. I got another call in a meeting and says, oh, I'm tired of these people. I'm going to resign now. I said, okay, have you dropped the resignation letter? She said, no. I said, okay, please just calm down. Whatever you do, it was a Friday. This was an incident of about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a Friday. I said, okay, you know what? Please just try and endure this Friday. Let's talk over it over this weekend. We're going to see over the weekend, and then we'll talk about it. In her own story, this particular lady, it ended up well. She didn't resign. Eventually, the same, difficult boss, things changed. And then on that same job, she got a promotion and things looked very well. Okay, afterwards, happy ending. Unfortunately, there are instances where there might not be a happy ending. Now, after you have calmed down, what should you do? People often think when my boss is wicked or is being difficult on me, what I should do is go around and be talking to people. Oftentimes, what I've seen is that it has always backfired. Even the difficult boss who is not willing and ready to listen, you know what he will tell that person? How come he never spoke with me and is going around reporting me to everybody? Reports is what they will see. How come he's just going around reporting me to everybody? So I usually would advise, have a conversation with your line manager. Again, my assumption is that the difficult boss, is your manager, is your direct manager. If it's the manager of your manager, maybe it's a different conversation. But really, what's the business of your manager, of the manager of your manager with you? It's your manager. If my manager is being difficult to my team members, I should be the one that would address the situation. So I'm assuming your boss is somebody that you can have a conversation with. I'm assuming that that difficult boss is your immediate line manager. If it is a case of where you cannot talk to the person, then it's a different conversation. But you should start with having a conversation. And remember, we spoke about the communication style and understanding the perspective of this person, which is what I have done in situations where I've had to deal with some extremely, and when I say extremely difficult situations. And in my own case, I think it also ended well. It also ended well. That is what I would say, but not like that for everybody. So have a conversation with your boss. Sometimes it might just be to understand things. I had a team member who was always coming late to the office. And her case was very particular because her house is not far from the office. So I didn't see any reason why she should be coming late to the office. So one day I had a conversation, and then I understood. She has a young child. The nanny, I think maybe the nanny took off, all of those challenges with nanny and all of that. And then so she has to first go and drop the child in the crèche, and then before start coming to the office. And of course, the crèche that you will drop the child, oftentimes is a function of what your pocket can accommodate. So if we had gone ahead to just say, you're a perpetual latecomer, you are this, you are that story probably might not have ended well. So I would recommend have a conversation with your line manager. Let's focus on results. Why is your boss being unnecessarily difficult? You know, I mentioned earlier that oftentimes when we hear the story, we hear just one side of the story. We don't get to hear the perspective of the difficult boss. And in all sincerity, I have seen some people's performance to be very abysmal. And then they say their boss does not like them. My brothers and sisters, I cannot like you too, at a certain extent, if your performance is very, very abysmal. It will affect me. There is no doubt about it. I remember one of my team members was giving me, in fact, this one is not a case of a difficult boss, it's a case of a difficult team member. And what I've seen with some line managers, we like to threaten people with I will sack you. The day I knew one of my line managers cannot sack me, I was very happy. As in, that day I just found out that this guy can do nothing. I was very happy. So I called the guy and I said, see, I'm sure you probably think I will tell you, I will sack you, I'll do this, I'll do that. I said, just let me warn you. This job, you will do it too, whether you like it or yes. You're on top of, inside you now, you're thinking, okay, and this guy doesn't like me. So I said, if I sack you, who will do the job? You think I'll add this job and add it to my own? No. Any help that you need, just let me know. But this job, you are going to do it. And it worked for me. It worked for the guy, really, because his performance then changed after that. Some of us, our performance is not something that we should be proud of. And we hide under, it's a difficult boss. What will give you leverage is if you deliver results. What will give you leverage is if you are consistent with your performance. What will give you result is that even if people speak, they will look at your performance and your performance will speak for you. That's the key that I believe to staying ahead. You can get a place, you are related to the owner and all of that. No, it's a different conversation. We're talking about a proper office setting. You knew nobody before you got into the office. What you're there to do is to do your job and do it well. I will struggle, and I'm being very sincere. I remember years in Union Bank, and what happened is there was a Christian fellowship, and they asked me to come and join. And I asked who were the leaders of the fellowship. And when they mentioned the name, I said I wasn't going to join because I had challenges with those people being the people that would take the leadership of the fellowship because their performance was not going to speak for it. And interestingly, after some years, somebody now came, okay, you said it was because of leadership. Leadership has changed now. Will you come? I looked at it again and I said, oh, okay, I can join. So let your performance be that thing that will give you that leverage. If it is not there, then you're at a disadvantage. That's the truth. Now, having understand that, we started with stay calm, talk to your boss, focus on results. How do you seek support? Some of us keep quiet until things get so very, very bad. In all of the career supports that myself and my team and that we've provided, even either individually or with my team, I can only remember once that I've asked somebody, you need to resign. By the time the lady gave a download of all she had gone through and had landed her in the hospital, and we looked at her and said, Madam, if you want to get out alive, then this is the time to leave. If you want to get out alive, this was, I think, during COVID, how she was being verbally abused up to the point that it had landed her in the hospital and she had just done a major surgery. And even while recuperating, they were still loading her with work. And this is someone who was not appreciated. Going by our own advice, it was like, as we're talking, oh yeah, let's help you draft resignation letter, let's leave. The conversation that time was not about where will she get another job. It was that, will she be alive to even get another job? A week after, she tendered her resignation and left. And she took about 3-4 months off, left Lagos. By the time we saw this lady, it was a different person. She was a lot, she had healed, she was relaxed, she looked good compared to the person that we saw the other time. What if she had kept quiet? In fact, one of the ways the way we blamed her was that, why did you keep quiet so long? Why did you keep quiet so long? What if she didn't have any trusted colleague? What if there was no mentor? What if there was no space like this HR space that the likes of Toles and a few other people put together? What if those things are not there where you can open up and say, I need help, I need support, I need guidance? Sometimes you have bosses that will give you work that you are not. It's like asking my 5-year-old son to say, go and begin to do calculus. And the guy is asking, what's that? Or you ask one primary ones and say, okay, come and be doing Pythagoras theorem, be using 4-figure table. And that's what some bosses will do to you. Unfortunately, because it's a corporate environment, you have to find a way to do it. So what do you do to colleagues? Talk to senior mentors, talk to senior professionals, let them help you. Don't keep quiet. Fellas sang about suffering and smiling. Say, don't suffer and smile. Speak out. Now, when you are speaking, when things refuses to change, please try and document. Try and keep records. And I will give you a practical example. So, I had a boss who asked me to do what I was not qualified for. And when I say what I was not qualified for, I'm an HR person. And he asked me to do something that is completely HR. I struggled with it. And one day I went to meet and I said, sir, I don't know how to do this. This is not my area of expertise. I need help. Go and get it done. That was final. And so I called a few colleagues. I got support from them, and we did some things. And I sent it to my boss, and he rejected it. And I sent it, and he rejected it. And when I say I sent it, we were modifying. Oh, do this way. I don't want it this way. We will go and modify. We will come back, and my boss will again turn it down. And if you were me, how would you feel? So at some point, I gave up. I stopped touching it. And then at board meeting, I was finished there about how I could not deliver simple tasks, blah, 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 and all of that. And guess what helped me? I had documentation for everything. All of the conversations, everything. So by the time I was reported and I was asked to, I wasn't asked to respond, but I saw it that it was proper for me to respond. Again, we need to also borrow a lot of wisdom from it. Should you respond? Should you not respond? I did respond, and I think it was good for me. In some other instances, maybe responding might not be the appropriate thing, but have your documentation. And I brought out all of the documentations and the references, and that was how, I was let off the hook. That might have gone so against me if I had not had documentation. So in your interactions, what these difficult bosses will do, they are not going to say, I abused you, the guy's head is big, his nose is flat. No, they will give you work. They will make sure this work, there are things that you probably cannot deliver. So don't keep quiet. Every effort that you make, please let it be documented. It might not speak for you in that organization, might be somewhere else that it will speak for you, but please try and document things. Boundaries. we must know where to draw the line. We must know where to draw the line. Interestingly, this is on a lighter note where, some of us, we just call our subordinates anytime. Saturdays, Sundays, just call them. And if they don't pick, if they don't respond, we get upset. So this morning at about 7:47, one of the zonal managers in my office called me. I saw his call, 7:47, and I'm being very specific because I looked at the time and I chatted him. I looked at it and I was like, I ended the call, I didn't pick it. So around 12, I sent him a chat. Oga, don't you think you are crossing the line? How can you be calling me at 7:47 on a Saturday? What's the emergency? So it's the other way now. It's somebody who is junior to me who is doing it. But how about us who are in quote the seniors? Do we do it? When it is being done to you, you see, when you get into an office and you make it known that I'm available anytime, just be ready for whatever happens after. That's a mistake that some of us make. Because we want to impress, they call me on Saturday, on Sunday, I show that I'm available. At the early stage, okay, but as we grow in our career, we must be able to set a boundary. We must be able to draw that line. And so one of my ogas, and at some point I told him, I said, Oga, I told him, I will not be reachable on Saturdays again. No. It was a struggle for him initially, but afterwards, we all agree, any work that you want me to do, I will give it all the time. At some point, I was also closing very late in the office. I'll leave very early. I'm the first to get to the office. I'm the last to leave the office. And I say, this thing has to change. It has to change. So we must learn to draw that line. Distance yourself from unacceptable behaviors. Unacceptable behaviors includes gossip. Oh, my guy is wicked. And then we sit down with some people and then we'll talk and talk and talk and talk about him. What you and I often don't realize is in that circle of the talking, there's somebody who is looking for the good eyes of that difficult Oga. He's going to give a download of everything that you have said. So rather than the situation getting better, it is what we say or what we do that actually aggravates the matter. So the guy you become so irritable to him or to her. Now, I mentioned earlier under seeking support is approach a senior manager, a senior person, if it doesn't stop, if it gets to that point where, and good enough, some organizations have whistleblowing policy. Whistleblow your Oga. I'm never against it, but make sure that what you're whistleblowing is the truth. So we had a case where we had to deal with in one of the places I'd worked some years ago. This guy is a numbers person. He's a performer. But the trend that we have then seen is that the highest attrition was in his team. People were resigning because of him. Like somebody dropped a chat. People were just leaving. This person comes, and then the people who looked good, they come in, they become bad. So Harvard Business Review describes them this way. It says they are good at what they do, but bad at who they are. That's the way one article I read in Harvard was describing a boss like that. They are delivering the numbers, but in terms of the people, is a different thing entirely. So what then happened? People would think they will always get away with these things, but after some time, you realize that you won't always get away with it. Eventually, they had to ask the guy, the so-called performer, because we always think it is a numbers thing. So please, if you have a structured organization where you have whistleblowing, please, by all means, utilize it. Anonymously, you don't want your identity known. And in some instances, it's affecting me, I will come out. The worst case scenario is they will tell us to leave. Leave the organization is not leave the world. This other point says stop supplying them with currency to belittle you and take a stand. There are some excuses we shouldn't give. There are some excuses we shouldn't give. Look for anything possible to avoid those excuses. So recently we asked some of our guys to submit some reports, and there's somebody who say, oh, either he comes with, there was no light in my axis. Another person he comes, oh, sorry, my phone was not charged, and all of that. And the question will be, must it always be you? Is it only you? So don't give them that leverage where they will belittle you on some things. And then I call this fight or flight. We know of that principle. You look at the situation and you ask yourself, do you want to fight? Do you want to stay here? Or do you want to leave? Somebody will say, plan your exit. And I totally support it. If it looks like nothing will change, if it looks like all the odds are against you, have your plan. Now, this is not saying just wake up one day because it says something and say you are going because emotions are quite very high then. No. Plan it. Develop yourself. What's the next thing for you in your career space? Begin to develop yourself. Get connected, network, meet people, engage, interact. So that when you finally make that decision, you know that it's not something you will look back and regret. Please, questions, clarifications, please just drop it. So this is just while all of this is happening, please be composed, even in the midst of the difficult situation. Talking about don't just take rash or harsh decisions. I'm going to quit and all of that. I interviewed a guy about 2 months ago for a role, one of those techie roles that you know that these roles are in high demand and all of that. And there was just something that wasn't just looking right. So I reached out to a senior colleague who had sent the CV. I was like, there's something about this guy that I'm struggling to understand. What exactly is it with him? And then when he opened up, he got upset with the Oga and dropped his resignation. And like, you know what, I will get another job next week. It's been maybe a year or so or more, and nothing has happened. So please don't take any rash or harsh decision when the emotions are high. I spoke about gossip, boundaries, integrity. Don't let it be, it is you. You're saying this today, you're saying another thing tomorrow. When they call your colleagues to come and testify, I can almost bet it, because everybody wants to protect their job. They will almost want to speak to support whatever your difficult line manager is saying. So I think I'll just pause here. There are some examples I would have loved to give, but again, I'm also being very mindful of the time. But I think in summary, a few things that I've learned this few years of experience that we have is one, don't take any rash decision in the midst of that difficult situation. It might look like you are in high demand, and that's what some people would tell you, but it might not always be that way. Secondly is you've got to develop yourself. Let your performance speak for you. You cannot be an average performer and then expect that circumstances will speak in your favor. Don't be afraid when you have to speak. If people are using abusive, foul words that you do not appreciate, and I don't think any of us, don't let anyone talk down on you, because the danger of this is that you get to a point where you don't believe in yourself anymore. And I found myself in that situation. I have a friend who had reached out, oh, how did you maneuver this? I'm having these challenges with my line manager. What should I do? And these were some of the things that we discussed. just make sure that your performance does not drop. Once that happens, you have a leverage to speak about some other things. Thank you so much. I would be glad to take questions and answers at this point. Thank you. Okay. So I see some questions already. Let me see how I can look at them. Okay, so this is from Agbaya HR. How do you deal with a manager who listens to staff who provide false rumors about you and they don't give you a chance to defend yourself? This has been going on for 3 months and I'm trying to be professional, but it's messing with my mental health. I work. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I actually didn't see that. That was directed at. It was a direct message. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. 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 Sorry. Sorry. So there's a situation here. Yes. So, and I think Toles has also posted, if you have any contribution, please don't mention names, don't mention organizations. And I know some of us would remember some few years ago, where you had this Toles, can you remind me? It was trending on, was it on Twitter? Where they were calling out some wicked bosses like that. I've forgotten what was the name of that. I can't remember now. So, if rumors are being spread falsely about you, um, I think it might be important for you to have a conversation with, I guess, with your line manager. Uh, Again, yeah, toxic workplaces. Yeah, thanks. Horrible bosses. Yeah, yeah. And I know a few people that they mentioned their names there. And I was actually scared at some point. I hope nobody will mention my own name. So I'm always very careful when it comes to rumors. I'm always very careful when it comes to rumors. Am I sure that this thing is being said? Did my line manager confront me to say, this is what they said about you, or somebody is telling me that they said this and I'm acting based on that? If there's a confrontation or if there is a conversation with my line manager about what has been said, I think I would speak up. I would like to address those things that were being raised. But if it's a case of I'm hearing it, somebody is saying it, I don't know who is saying it. Sometimes my personality, I rather just remain quiet. If anybody brings it up, then I think it's something I might want to address. Okay. In a situation, I'm trying to soak in some of the questions because this is very sensitive and a very practical session. Right? If you are not given any chance to speak, hmm, personally, for me, at some point, I would leave. But like I mentioned earlier, plan it. Don't just let it be a one-off incident that happens today, and then you just realize that because of this, I'm leaving today. No, I can say I'm leaving today because of one incident, but you know what? I probably might have been planning it for 3-4 months. Not that that incident today is what is the alpha and omega of why I'm leaving. So I would have been planning, I would have been thinking, because if you don't hear me, and if I don't have the opportunity to express myself, so how else am I going to speak for myself? I remember some years, this should be around 2010, 11, and there were some allegations against some things that we're doing in the office. They had raised some there was a whistleblower against my line manager about some of the our assigned responsibilities. And so my line manager was being accused of some things. And because I was the one who was sitting on that desk, automatically I was part of it too. And it became so messy that I had to call my dad and I was going to leave. At that time, I didn't have where I was going to. So, and my dad says, see, even if you have where you are going to, this might not be the best time for you to leave. If you leave now, you might never have the chance to clear your name. So as much as I want you to leave, make sure you clear your name before you leave. Don't leave something hanging on your neck while you're leaving. So clear your name, and then after you can leave. But of course, by the time the investigation and everything was concluded, we were exonerated. The supposed people who, they were the ones who even now had to face it. All right, so Todd, there are some hands up. I don't know how we would take them. So. Thanks. Yeah. Lumniba says, clear your name, then leave. You're very. I cleared my name. I eventually didn't leave because those people had to leave. So I think it became a bit better. But if that's not the case in your own case, then just make sure you clear your name and then leave. Address those rumors and then plan your exit. Okay. So let me see. Can I unmute? Okay, Madam Olubusola.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, colleagues.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and it's really not a question. It's more like a contribution that like my take back from what the masterclass had been so far. So basically, it's just we in the HR space understanding that whether we are bosses or we are subordinates, we need to understand the people that we work with. The approach you use for a particular person will not work for the next person. Some people really need to be pushed to deliver, but how we go about it is what makes the difference. And considering the active workforce that we have now, the Gen Zs, every little thing, even when you're trying to encourage them to be better, they see it as you are being toxic. So we need to understand that they don't have the grit that we had while growing up, that we could understand that, okay, this is how I have to do. I need to adjust to this pressure and all of that. So basically, is understanding is subjective with the person you're dealing with and the class of generation, so to say. Millennials are better managed compared to the Gen Zs. So this is just like my contribution to it. It's not a question, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, ma. Thank you so much. Yes, so different ways to manage the generations, Gen Z, millennials, Gen Alpha. All right, thank you. Yes, Mr. Hosea, please, I don't know how to pronounce the name, just permit me. I think that's the next person.
Okay, sir. Okay, so thank you very much for the presentation. I just want to give a practical example. I had 2 or 3 difficult bosses that I worked with at different organizations. And one of my approaches then was to gather courage, momentum to meet them. So I remember one of them, I met him alone because I knew he was alone in the office. I entered his office and locked the door. So from inside, and then I told him that we are going to talk. So I now laid down all the issues. And at the end, he ended up apologizing and we settled because some of the rumors and everything that was going around, they were not true. I also had another one, he was high up, but I met him in the office, but I didn't lock his door because he was a big man there. But what I did was I told him the reason why I booked to see him. And we talked at length. I outlined everything, some of the things that I remember. And in fact, I told him that some of the issues they are affecting even the department or the unit that I was studying. So he now gave me his own catalog of issues and how it was like some of the things they are not actually our fault, but so many things to try to defend and get. So dialogue is very important. Let's take courage. If you cannot meet the person directly because it's so difficult, you can't approach him or you don't have the lever, you can ask somebody or you can go with somebody to meet him, and then the person can speak up, and then you'll be able to resolve that. And finally, the issue of living, just like you said, is not the best. Sort it out, because if you live without sorting out the issues, one day you maybe either appointment or you've gotten another job, they will want to get reference from that organization that you left. So if those people are left hanging, definitely the reference will not be in your favor. But after sorting out the issues, you can then leave if you like. I had a situation whereby I wanted to leave at a point because of certain issues, but I said no, I will remain. And at the end, I remained somewhere, and until when, after working for more than 10 years or so, I left. And up to today, when I go back there, they always receive me with open hands. So please, the generations, apart from the millennium Gen Z, and just don't rush into living, please, because most of them they don't stay long. 1 year, maximum 2 years, they think they have stayed for long and they want to leave. Please, just be patient, and then see, especially for us in HR, to be able to learn. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. While you were speaking, my tallest friend was telling me I don't know how to pronounce your name. Tallest, be very careful. Don't let me tag you as a difficult boss. It's the other name that I say I don't know how to pronounce, not the first name. So please, how do you pronounce it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. All right, Lum Niba, your hand is up. Let's take your contribution quickly. Thank you. And then I have one of our big ogas in the house, Mrs. Rita Babalola. So I'll call you, Ma, so that you also just share your thoughts. So please get ready. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. Thank you again. For these sessions, they are very insightful. They do help me, even though I've been in HR for a while. So mine is more of a question rather than a contribution per se.
Okay.
So this actually is a very timely webinar for me, and it made a lot of sense. But then my question is based on the fact that in as much as we as HR professionals might have difficult bosses, there's also the place where we will not want to feel that you are a difficult boss. And the lady who spoke before kind of spoke about where I'm coming from, where there's a difference in the different generations of people that you get to work with. And as she pointed out, it's easier to work with millennials because they are tougher, they have worked for probably a longer time, and they understand work ethic and a couple of things, rather than the Gen Zs that their mental health is easily affected by everything that you suggest. So in a situation where instead of you having to deal with a difficult boss, you are in the position of a boss, and even when you try to ensure that the people who work under you get better, like you give them corrections because you want them to be better at what they are doing. They don't get to see it like that. They are either giving excuses, like what you said in your last slide. You should not give excuses, or you shouldn't create situations where you're being criticized or you're picked on because of inefficiencies. What if this is the situation, and in this case, you are the boss? how do you, and I know we do a lot of work there, your advice that you should use power skills, emotional intelligence, empathy. But then we're considering that these people were working with a special breed. These are Gen Zs. So even when you've tried all these things, what advice, what direction, what template can you give? There's definitely not a fixed template, but what advice can you give just so that we can check ourselves and we can be mindful and ensure that we don't get to that position where we are the difficult bosses and these people feel that they cannot work with you because there must be a way to be able to get through to them. It can't just be this, like, no, my mental health is not okay. I don't feel you like me. You're not being a nice boss.
All right. Thank you so much for that. How do we ensure that we ourselves are not the difficult bosses? I think is one of the takeaway. One thing that has helped me. So while you were speaking, Abib, I saw your chat. One of my team members, I saw is on the call, and he's making me shake so that whatever I say can be useful or against you. I think one of the things I have learned is to take feedback. I found out early that sometimes I could be very hard. When I was speaking earlier, I said I was in that category of people who want everything to be perfect. Who wants everything? I'm like a perfectionist. And people who have worked with me will tell you, if you type a memo for me and there is double gap, double spacing, it's almost like you removed a vital part of my organ at that time. And then you just realize, if you keep going that way, how exactly will you be able to help people? So rather than people learn, what they do is that they become afraid of you. They cannot speak, right? So you must learn to take feedback. And this feedback, don't go to your colleagues to take it. Don't go to your HR space to take the feedback. If I ask Toles to give me feedback about myself on the job, there are some things he might not be able to speak, precisely on. He can speak maybe on a generic term, but your team members, the guys who work with you, they are the ones who can give you that feedback. Now, the other question is, will they be bold enough to tell you exactly the way it is? Would they be able to do it? So that's another feedback for you. So maybe you want to start by, making it anonymous in such a way that they can say it. One of those trainings that we went through is that they said feedback is a gift. So if you take it, then you can begin to work on yourself. I remember joining an organization and I was going to leave. I wasn't happy the way and all of that. And then I just sat and said, okay, am I leaving because of me or because of something else? If I feel the organization is not fair on me, what then is the fate? You are supposed to be head of HR. What then is the fate of the people that you are fighting for? Right. So I think that feedback for me is very key. It's one thing that I can quickly think of now. How do you ensure you don't get to that place where you are that difficult boss that people cannot work with, people cannot approach, subordinates cannot ask questions, they are afraid to talk to you because either you talk down on them. I was in a meeting. Some places I've worked, and I don't want to mention names. And at the meeting there, I asked a question, and the guy said he was way our guy then. And the guy says he used a word. How can you ask maybe something like, how can you ask a senseless question like that? And for a very long time, I wasn't asking question again until another senior person reached out and said, you've been very quiet lately. What exactly is it? And I said, the last question we asked, they said it was senseless. And I want to just try and make sure that the small sense that is remaining, let me keep it well, But of course, eventually I got over it. So let's learn to take that feedback. I think that's what I can speak to that one. If I think of any other thing, immediately I can share it. Mrs. Babalola, Good evening, I hope you are still on the call. Would like to just get your input also, because I know you've dealt with so many of this. So let me confirm if she's still on the call. Let me see. Oh, I'm not sure if she's on the call again. I don't think she's on the call again. I can't see her. All right. So let me see any other question that I'm missing. Okay, so we have people joining from different locations. Any other question? Any other question? Any other question? Okay. So, okay. All right. I'm not sure Mrs. Babalola is on the call again, but maybe in capping up, please. We've spoken about some of the people who gave their comments, their contribution also spoke about, understanding the different generational gaps. With generation, please, no matter what happens, let's not. If you were nursing, I just want to resign and all of that. Under this current administration, please think thrice before you take any of these steps. That's what I would say. Just speak out, don't keep quiet, speak out, engage, and then I would trust that you will get the right motivation and support for that. All right, Tolest, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jimmy Mokikon, for that highly insightful session and presentation. I didn't expect anything less, knowing you and the caliber and pedigree that you operate with over the years. I would like to celebrate you once again. Just to add 1 or 2 cents to this conversation. Again, like the facilitator had said, this is not to hold forth or brief for difficult bosses, and that's not to authenticate and validate what they are doing from whether it is right or wrong. What we are trying to do here is that sometimes you will work with difficult bosses and you may work with them for an extended period of time so that you can make the best of situations. Again, difficult bosses also have some corresponding advantages. Some of them, for example, will stretch you and build resilience, your long suffering, your capacity. Some of them will force you to become better. In fact, there are certain depths you will unlock that a nice person cannot unlock. And I was saying just somewhere today that if you understand accounts, a typical account, for example, of balance sheet, you have assets and liability. If in your bank statement too, you'll have credit and debit. So the workplace too typically has, so to speak, tough people and, so to speak, maybe not so tough or nice people. To shaping and mature in your career, generally speaking, ladies and gentlemen, only nice colleagues will not help you attain your full potentials. Just like you can't print, if you have a balance sheet and you take it to the embassy and everything is only credit, they will suspect foul play. It will be a cause of suspicion. So you need to see that all the different kind of bosses, the good, the bad, the ugly, are directly and indirectly shaping you, helping you attain maturity, preparing you for bigger opportunities, bigger roles, and bigger terrain. So what do I do? The question is, because of this so-called tough boss, what skills or competence am I acquiring? And without, of course, mentioning me, one of the reasons why I have certain certifications today is the kind of bosses I had at some point. So I used to have a boss, Jimmy, who believed that he didn't like local content. Again, I'm not mentioning him. So if you don't have anything funny, you would think maybe you are not cerebral enough, you are not intellectual enough, that you don't have visibility to global best practices. And to the glory of God, it's not as if I couldn't afford at that time any of these exams. It was just a matter of choice. And it wasn't also that I didn't have the intellectual capacity to either read. In fact, one of the exams, I didn't do any study center or anything that people pay a lot of money to go and join. So I just paid with the Institute Online, booked the exam dates, and wrote the exam, and I passed. And when this particular gentleman saw the results, said, now we are colleagues. In my mind, what were we before? But I see that person's orientation and disposition towards me changed a little. So find out what makes people tick. I've also seen people, upset bosses on flimsy basis. Let me give you an example. So your boss is an Arsenal fan. Then they lose that weekend. Then you go and be City beat you yesterday. Oh, Liverpool beat you. Please, you need to draw the lines.
There's somebody on this call. There's somebody on this call that used to do it to me.
Please be tough on him so that he will rest his lower his shoulder pad. So you need to know some people, in quotes, is almost strictly business. Even when they appear to be joking with you, please, like they say on the streets now, don't lose guard. Be thorough, be professional, and put in your best. Finally, what I like to say here too, in the process of your evolution, emerging into a bigger, more successful boss, make sure that if your definition of difficult bosses is negative, that is if it is negative, make sure you to the people you are supervising today, the people you are the line manager to, don't see you as a negative, difficult boss, so that we don't transfer the kind of manifestations we are a victim of that we think is not positive. But find it also in your heart to also, I'm trying not to find it where I don't have a better word, Jimmy can help me, to not take offense as much as possible, especially as long as you can say that however they are treating you is not a malicious intent to make your life miserable. Some people, they are just thorough, and their thoroughness, you are taking it as being tough. And Jimmy both worked for a boss at one point in our joint career. That boss have written a memo. I mean one memo, a one-page memo, 28 times. I said that again. Jimmy, you can testify. One memo, a one-page memo, 28 times. Of course, by the time we got to the 18th time, it was no longer me he was correcting. He was now correcting. So the thing he has said, put this here, we say, no, remove this. So it was, then it now dawned on me, there's just a perfectionist. So it wasn't like he had any, although with time, and now I got to the level that by the fourth attempt, the memo will fly. But guess what happened? My capacity to articulate at that executive level improved. So I could have been stuck on the frustration that what are we writing? Are we writing letter to God? But it pays off much later. So it will pay off. So please don't waste your pay. You understand? Whatever, and that's why Jimmy exit prematurely. Don't exit just because you've not gotten another job, but don't also exit for a suboptimal opportunity. Stay on that job so that the opportunity you will get and you will take, it will be such that even if your boss was good, you will still have taken that job and opportunity. Don't be led by irritation and by annoyance. Don't exit based on frustration. Exit based on an opportunity that is worth it. That even your boss will celebrate you. They will even do some effort for you. You understand? My last contribution is that I have seen, and I'm speaking from experience within my close circle network, people that the seemingly tough bosses maybe got an opportunity and they were not interested, and they called their subordinate that, these people called me for this, but for 1, 2, 3 reasons, I don't want to go. Are you interested? And the so-called tough boss of 3 years suddenly provided an opportunity or a blessing that all the toughness was worth it. In fact, may you be tough forever. But if they have not managed that relationship maturely, that opportunity that crystallized eventually, they will have missed it. Ladies and gentlemen, I've thoroughly enjoyed tonight's session.
Yemi,
I
sorry,
thank
let me
every
just...
one of us. Yeah. Go on.
Yemi, you know, the examples you just gave, the person we worked together, I remember when I did a memo once and it was approved. It was as if I won jackpots, right? And, you know, like you mentioned, it looks as if he was being tough then. It looks as if he was being tough. Just about 2 weeks ago, my office did something for Lagos State government. We shared something with them. And you know what happened? They liked that so much that they decided to make it a template among banks in our space. Guess who did that thing? I did it because of the training that I received from the seemingly boss that looks tough. Today, I have a boss who also looks tough, but he refers me today. So you must learn, and I think to summarize what Tolles just, don't waste your pain. Don't waste it. Make the best out of it. Thanks, Yemi. And if you permit me, Tolles, I saw in the chat, my mother-in-law is on the call. Yes. It means I'm not a difficult son-in-law. Thank you, ma. I saw your chat. All right, Yemi, thanks. Sorry, is it me or Tolles? Please, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Babalola, you are here now. I can see Beacon Gate. I was expecting something from you. Good evening, ma. Oh, Tolles is, I think, his network failed. So I think I'll just hold forth for him to come back in, but I know he was about rounding up the session. So please, thank you, everyone. Let's not waste our pain. Let's not be the difficult boss. Let's create opportunity for people to learn. Let's make the environment. I love to have an atmosphere of fun where people can thrive. Because I can't thrive where everything just looks tense and tense and tense around. Okay, Tallest is back in now. Hello, Tallest. Welcome back. If you can hear me, Yemi. Okay, I don't know if maybe should we just round off then? But I think that's about it, guys. Maybe anybody Tallest comes in and meets. I think that's about the session this evening. It's available on YouTube. It will be available on YouTube. Let me not say it's available on YouTube. It will be available on YouTube. So you can just go over it again. Forget the slides. I think it's just understanding those practical steps in addressing, this difficult situations. But please and please, have a proper exit plan. Don't just rush out of a place and then you look back and then you're having regrets on it. So while I wait for Yemi, Olayinka, Mr. or Mrs. Olayinka, Oladele, please, you have your hands up. I think you can speak. Okay, you have a question. Please go ahead.
Okay, good evening, sir. My name is Olayinka. I'm a male. Thank you. Thank you so much for the education. And thanks also to Mr. Yemi. He has been a good mentor. So I haven't understood everything that was said tonight. Does it mean, my question is, does it mean that those quote and unquote the tough bosses, despite that we understand that they are trying to drill us to make us better. That's for those that understand it that way. Does it mean they can be soft or they can be easy and still drill us and still, make us better? Must they be that tough? That's just my question. Does it mean if they are being soft, they won't achieve that?
Okay, maybe just a quick way for me. Do you have control over how they choose to handle that situation? I'm not sure it's within your control.
Sorry,
Yes.
I didn't get to the first part.
I'm saying, is it within your control to change them?
No.
So I think our focus is, let's look at what is within our control. If we're fortunate that is a boss who is willing to take feedback, he might then begin to see that, okay, maybe I need to soft pedal on some of these things. I used myself as an example earlier. There were instances where the feedback was that I was unnecessarily harsh. So I had to take that feedback and then look at, okay, how can this be done better? So, but unfortunately, if that person is not open to feedbacks, you might just not be able to change them. Learn your own learnings, the pains turn into opportunity for you to get better at some things, and then just be determined that you are not going to be like that difficult boss. Toles, I don't know if you want to add to it while I yield the floor to you.
All right, thank you so much for your question, Mr. Oladele Olayinka. Thank you, Jimmy, for your response. I think that's quite apt. Just to say that certain strengths comes with certain corresponding weaknesses. Not to say that we cannot manage or control our weaknesses, but sometimes some people cannot, or some people are advanced. Maybe they are elderly, and their behavior, so to speak, has gotten them certain level of results, and trying to get them to be something else or modify their traits, they may not be able to cope. And because of the kind of value they bring to certain businesses, organizations, it may not be easy to displace them, except they are ready to be retired or move to greener pastures. But we're just saying that while you are there, use that constraint to become a better person. Just like, and well, I just need to make this example. Just like Nigeria as a whole is a tough country. But notwithstanding, those of us who have children, we still find a way to send our children to school. We didn't stop their education in the name of the fact that we're in a tough country. It's in this tough country, one way or the other, people are still managing to buy land, builders, one block at a time. People are still doing things. It's not easy, but we are not giving up. We are building our resilience. So whatever situation or circumstance you find yourself at the workplace, get ahead. Don't let your career stop. And that's why, again, let me end on one of the statements by the facilitator tonight. Make sure that your competence shines through. Because some people, when, so to speak, they are under top bosses who uses certain words and the likes, it affects their persona, it affects their psyche, and it makes their productivity to drop. And this productivity drop becomes evident to other stakeholders. Yes, you may have a strong justification to say it is attributed to boss A or boss B, but please, you need to show that you are stronger than the environment, than the context, and that you can weather tough period. Remember that wise man that said, tough times never last, but tough people do. I'll say that one more time. Yeah. Tough times never last, but tough people do. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the point where we can all unmute and say thank you to our facilitator for tonight. We can unmute and appreciate our facilitator right now.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank
Hearing your
sir.
voice again.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Torres, while you were out,
Torres.
I said my mother-in-law was on the call.
Thank you, Boss Jimmy. Thank you.